everyone, you're listening to The Magic Hour. Today we're talking about building a mindful career with the creatively inspired career coach, Jasmine Briggs. She's an expert at helping you align your passions with the career of your dreams, and she's here today to take us on the journey of building a mindful career. Are you ready to make some magic? Hey everybody, Shereen here. Welcome to The Magic Hour. If this is your first time listening, then thanks for coming. The Magic Hour drops every Sunday for your enjoyment, and show notes are found over at mylittlemagicshop.com, our official sponsor. Come back often and feel free to add the podcast to your favorite RSS feed, Spotify, or iTunes. And you can also follow me on Instagram at mylittlemagicshop and Facebook. All links are in the show notes. Now let's get into the show. Our guest today is mindful career coach, resume writing guru, author, and mindful brand building expert, Jasmine Briggs. Welcome, Jasmine. I'm so excited to have you as a guest.
Thank you so much for having me.
No problem. I'm really excited to talk. I think that this is a really important and exciting topic, especially as we kind of close out 2020 or have recently closed out 2020 and are moving into this new year of energy. So I know that a lot of folks out there are really hitting the reset button, sometimes forced and sometimes, just because they had some time to really think about it. So I'm excited to talk with you about all of that. But on the Magic Hour, we always like to start at the beginning. So tell me a little bit about where are you from? What was your upbringing like?
Sure. So I am originally from New York City. I grew up here with my mom, mainly in Brooklyn. Growing up, I wanted to be an actor. So I was that kid who was in Saturday taking dance class, taking acting classes. I didn't even want to go to college. I just wanted to stay in New York and be an actor, which my mother said no to. You will go to college. But yeah, that's how I grew up here as an only child in the city.
So interesting. And so, you go from wanting to do this career field of performing, so acting and dancing and all of that wonderfulness. Tell me a little bit about how you moved from that dream to wanting to help people find the right career path for themselves.
Sure. So in acting, came back to New York after college and I wasn't making any money that way. So I started temping. And from temping, I was signing up with a lot of temp agencies. It seemed interesting to me. And I was like, you know what? I could do this. So I moved over into recruiting part-time, waiting tables part-time, and still trying to be an actor. And I generally call it I had this dark night of the soul where I started to feel really unhappy and I knew that I could give more when it came to my career. At the time, all of my friends, it felt like were going to law school and I knew that wasn't for me. So I had a meeting with a friend of my mom's and she introduced me to something called drama therapy. I applied to NYU and I didn't get in. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to take some classes online and then apply again. And in looking for classes online, I found the Institute of Transpersonal Psychology, which is where I got my master's degree in transpersonal psychology with a focus on creativity and innovation. I got my life coaching certificate and it was then that I was like, all right, I know I want to help people, but I'm not sure how. And so I was able to kind of make a transition from being in recruiting to workforce development, where I helped people who were generally on HRA and had either substance abuse issues or some form of disability that was stopping them from finding employment.
Wow, what an interesting journey, to go from acting, your mom makes you go to college, and I want to point out that you went to a really good school too. So you went to George Washington, right? So I'm laughing because I'm you must have been doing really great in high school anyway, but your mom was like, you're not wasting that. And forced you to college, go through college, get out. And I feel like a lot of people have gone through this same experience. When I got out of college, I'm I paid all this money for this degree and I'm thinking this beautiful, wonderful, perfect job is gonna fall into my lap, and then you get out and you're just wait a second, this is not how the movies are. And then you're also going through all this, who am I, what do I want to do, how do I want to spend the rest of my life. And I love that your journey, each step led to a deep exploring a deeper part of yourself till you finally were okay, aha, I get it. I want to help people almost, deal with what I did of it.
What you touched on about like who am I, and I had to go through that process, especially when I was in grad school, of who am I and loving myself, right? One thing to learn who I was, but then to also love who I am. I think that was kind of what Flip did for me, is when I was able to love who I was and what I had to offer, then I was able to offer it to others. It felt like something real to give to people in terms of being able to help and wanting to help.
Oh, I love that so much because, often I hear so much talk about self love when it comes to like this more general experience, like make sure you meditate, make sure you eat well. Like, I haven't really heard it so often, it directly in regards to your career and your professional life. And I'm like, wow, like that makes a huge, huge difference to say, like, I love what I have to offer. I love how I show up professionally, and I don't hear that very often. So I love that you said that, because I do think that that is a really important part of as you kind of develop your career. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, it was really important for me. And I think as well, it just takes the types of careers you go for, how hard you go for them, what you think is possible for you, can all be related to what you think of yourself and your own self worth.
Yeah, that's so true. I'd love to go through the typical journey you take with a client on. Can you tell me a little bit about that? Like, where do you generally start?
It really depends on where the client is, right? So there are some clients who are very clear about what they want to do and what's next for them. And then we're looking at, okay, so how do we find your personal brand, right? If this is what's next for you, what are the things that are going to make you stand out? We may do some assessments where you're asking people in your family and in your professional life. From there, we are kind of crafting your materials based on that brand. So that means writing the resume, the cover letter, the LinkedIn profile, and then creating a strategy for how are we going to market you. So I think the job search, right, can work so much better when we have goals to hit within it, right? So how many applications are we sending out? How many networking events, back when we had them in person, are we attending, and with who, right? What's the network that we're building? And so we want to look at what the network that we're building is in person as well as online, and who's already in our network, and how do we connect to them from an authentic place, because sometimes networking can feel inauthentic, especially when we are looking for a job. And then keeping someone focused, because I think what really hurts a job search is when we pick it up and put it back down, search for a couple weeks and then forget about it. So kind of keeping them focused. I think when I'm working with someone who is unclear of what they want to do, it's just about questioning and doing research and looking at options. So I love to ask people, like, what did you want to do when you were a little kid? And okay, you went to school for this, but why? And what were the things when you were in school that interest you? And if you could just design your day, right? Let's forget about industry and what does it look like? Are you building presentations all day? Are you talking to people? Are you sitting at a computer writing? So like, what are the tasks that make you happy? And then from there, doing research and talking to people in those fields. And maybe you come with one or two targets, and we're working towards getting your foot in the door in one of those two target areas. And then everything else, obviously the personal branding and the strategy.
Oh, I love that so much. It reminded, well, I have a couple things to say about that, but one thing it did remind me of is my therapist like had me like map out like what does my perfect day look like, and then my perfect week and my perfect month. And I was just like, what do you mean? But then like when I actually did it, I was like, wow, like, this would be, and of course it was the way that she had me approach it was like in a perfect world, which I think was like a beautiful way to kind of like think about it, like, okay, I want to spend this amount of time working with clients, I want to spend this amount of time like doing analytics work, like just whatever I liked, and breaking it down, because it really did have me like a bit more focused as to like how I actually like to spend my day, and I never thought about that before. So I think that that's great. You had mentioned about personal brand. I've been hearing this phrase very often, and especially over the last couple of years with the pickup of social media. So like before, people didn't, I guess they didn't call it personal brand. Can you tell me a little bit about what it means to build a personal brand?
Sure. So I always like to say that we are the CEOs of our own company, right? We're in an age where now we are the product. Most people don't stay with the company forever and get a pension and retire. So your personal brand, right? Just like Coca-Cola has a brand, it has a logo, it has something that you think about when you think of Coca-Cola. It might be the polar bears, right? It might be Christmas time, whatever comes to mind for you. People have something that they think about that comes to mind when they think of you, right? And you also contribute to what that is. So your personal brand is can be the kind of the things that differentiate you. So what I would say for me, it's definitely creativity. I would say is one of my brand attributes. It can also be colors that are associated with you and what those colors, how you want people to feel about you. If you're organized, right, your appearance. So personal branding is really what differentiates you from your competition, but it's also taking kind of a holistic approach to who you are and in the professional realm, obviously. And when we're looking at online, we want to think about if we're Googling ourselves, right, what's coming up about us. If it's this LinkedIn profile that's coming up first, and if you're looking for a job, that's what we're hoping it would be. What is that profile saying about you? What does your picture say about you, your background picture, your about me, and what is kind of the message that you're building and you're coming across? If it's like, I am a detail oriented healthcare professional who brings joy to my patients, that should be coming across in your resume and your LinkedIn profile. And when people meet you, right, that's kind of the essence of that they get from you.
Yeah, I love that. And I think it ties back to what we were talking about earlier with self love. So, like, I would imagine that, it really starts with the things that you love most about yourself. And, like, I'm sure that those would be the things that would probably be the easiest things to shine and to really focus on highlighting. So, we had talked a little bit also about, like this whole searching for a job and like given 2020, and into 2021, what are some things you suggest or you're suggesting for people to kind of like professionally deal with these turbulent times? Like, so I guess two parts. One would be for the person who is, has decided that they don't no longer love their career trajectory and like are looking for change. And then for the person who, maybe like likes their career trajectory, but, is in a place where they're either trying to rise or they have to get a new job.
So I think one of the things that this year has definitely taught us is to be flexible, I would say. And I would say if you are in the process right now of looking for a job, it may be depending on the industry that you're in, hospitality, even fashion, that it might be that you need to be flexible and you need to say, okay, if these are the skills that I have, such as like merchandising or sales, where can those skills be utilized in other industries? I think it's about networking and still staying in contact with people, and people, we've just so adapted to being virtual and networking virtually. So I think that if anyone is looking for that job right now, it's still about setting those networking goals, connecting to people, flying. People are being hired every day. And I also work at a college in career services. So I see that. I see the grads that are getting jobs. Maybe it's taking longer. Maybe they're starting off differently, but they're definitely out there getting jobs. If you're happy with your current role, I still think you can build a strategy for being promoted. And if that strategy is to be promoted within your company or somewhere else, right? It's about taking a look and saying, what are the skills that I need that would take me to the next level? So do I need to learn how to manage people? Do I need to learn how to do this certain kind of report? Is this a skill that I can get on my current job? And who do I need to talk to about getting that skill? Or do I need to volunteer with another organization, right? And then thinking about what are the projects that I can take on that would show me in the next role, right? That are above what I'm currently doing. And I guess that's especially for someone who is trying to be promoted within their company. How are they getting in front of the right people, making it known, but also taking on work that lets people see them in a new light.
I love that. That's great. So one of my favorite things about you, specifically with your career coaching, is there's a very mindful approach that you take. Like one that, like, I don't want to call it spiritual, but I feel like maybe just more conscious, like a more conscious, like kind of woke sort of approach that you take to career development that I really, really love. And I know that you had you host vision boarding parties, specifically designed for careers and stuff. So, like, one thing I guess I wanted to talk a little bit about is this idea of, creating the perfect life for yourself and how your career kind of fits into that, and then taking a very mindful approach when it comes to developing your career and even just like dreaming. So my question is more so like, when you are advising people, do you advise them often to kind of like look internally first and then put out there what they want from the universe, or do you kind of like, advise them that maybe they should find people that they are inspired by? Like, how does it work?
So I think you can definitely call it spiritual, right? For me. And it also depends on how comfortable the client is. I generally advise people that they should put out there what they want. So we talked before about making, that list of all the things that you want to do. One of the exercises I generally have people do is write that out on a big piece of paper, use lots of colors, right? Put it somewhere where you can see it. I think there's definitely power in writing things down, right? I think there's definitely power in visualizing and seeing, yourself there and yourself doing well. As an actor, an acting coach once told me right before an audition, visualize yourself like killing it in the audition. And that was always something that really supported me. And that's something that I tell people to do right now before interviews. And I just made a job search meditation to kind of visualize it going well before your interview. So I definitely think that there is something about kind of the attitude that you put into your job search. And that can go from the point of view of, what are you allowing the universe to bring to you? If you're doing your job search and you're doing it begrudgingly and you're applying to things and going, I'm never going to get this job, that resonates and that gets out there. Also, from the point of view, if you're networking and you're networking grumpily, people feel that energy, right? People want to help people who are excited, who bring a certain joy. So I think as much as possible, because even me, no one loves to job search, right? But as much as possible, you can bring that joy and that expectation of good into your job search. I think it helps you in so many different ways, in terms of the universe bringing good into your life, but in terms of your own mental health, because the job search can be about a lot of rejection, right? It cannot always go on the timeline that we want it to go on, and that too can be hard. So how are you, using that positive energy to keep going and put positive feelings out there for the universe and for your network?
Okay, so you just finished a book, A Career Journey Within. Can you tell me all the things about it?
Sure. It's in the process, right? Finished. But I am writing a book, a crowdfunding campaign right now. And so the book is called A Career Journey Within. And it's all about how to go within and really use spiritual tools to support you in your job search. And one of the main things that I love talking about is career planning. And so the first stage of career planning is self-discovery. And so how do we take that self-discovery approach, not only from traditional self-discovery, like we talked about, doing assessments, looking at your network, seeing what your transferable skills are, but how do we approach it from going within, right? And meditating and doing body work and being creative and asking spirit or asking what you want, at the same time saying, okay, what is it that could be blocking me in terms of my thoughts? What are my beliefs that could be blocking my career search? If I believe that, and this used to be a belief that I had, that I'm not going to make any money in nonprofits, then I'm always going to attract low-level paying jobs in nonprofits. Right? So what is it that you believe is possible? How are those beliefs serving you or not serving you? And then what are the traditional job search steps that you can be doing, and doing them with the spirit of expecting good from the universe?
That sounds so fantastic. Okay, so now that you have a ton of experience, if you could go back to your younger self, first embarking on this career journey of yours, what advice would you give her?
Oh, that's a really good question. It's funny because I look back at the jobs that I've had and I go, oof, but I know that every job, even if I did not like it, has led me somewhere and taught me something. I think that I would tell myself how fabulous I am more often. I think for me, it was always confidence, right? That was kind of the blocker. And I think too, because I wasn't confident, I don't know that I always gave things 100%. So I was here giving things 75%. So when they failed, I was like, oh, wow, you know what I mean? But what would things look like if I really believed in myself enough back then to give myself 100%, to give it 100% and to really put myself out there a little bit more?
I really love how you connected that idea of like, fully showing up 100% to like a sense of confidence. Cause I guess I never thought too deeply into that before until a moment ago. And I feel like that's so beautiful because often, like, when you don't believe in yourself, it's very easy to half ass things. So, like, I think that, when you do really, you're like, oh, I know I can do this. Like, you want to do 150% just because like you're so excited to shine. And I think that it's so powerful to be like, okay, like, even if I'm not 100% confident, I'm still going to give my 100% to this, and making a conscious like effort to do so. And oh, that's really powerful. Thank you for sharing that. And another thing you had mentioned is like looking back at previous jobs. Like, so I've had tons of jobs like throughout my career, and I did get to like this point a few years ago where I was just like, I just waste all that time like at these all of these jobs. And then I had this really profound aha moment that was like, no, if you actually pay attention, all of those things you learned were the perfect building blocks to get you to exactly where you are now. So the thing though is that, like, how grateful were you for those moments in that time period, and how efficiently and effectively did you master those skills at that time? So that, or are you like looking back now like, dang, I wish I would have paid a little bit more attention when I was learning this one skill that I thought was completely useless. But I think it's beautiful because I think that often when you start to adapt more mindfulness, like in more presence in everyday moments, it's much easier to see like the synchronicities of life. Be like, oh, like, I know that maybe I don't understand why I'm learning this right now, but there's a reason why I'm learning it, and hopefully I will understand it at some point. And I feel like once I had that moment, I started taking like everything a little bit more seriously and paying a little bit more attention to things, even if I thought they were completely ridiculous, and kind of just looking forward to the moment of like, thank God I learned that. That skill. So I just want to say, like, for anybody who's kind of going through that right now, that sense of, oh, I can't believe, like, why do I have to learn this dumb thing, or why do I have to take on this new skill? Like, just know that the universe is so beautiful and synchronistic that down the line you're going to appreciate that moment. So even if it's really hard, I want you to just like try a little bit to pay attention and enjoy it. Okay, so what are some other tips you would give all the folks out there that are just fed up and frustrated with their current career situation?
If you're fed up, then it's the time to do something about it, right? I just believe that we can all be happy in our careers, right? And I know that there are other situations and it may not happen as fast as we want it to happen, but I do think that we can always be working on it and putting the positive energy around it. I would say for anyone, like, have that LinkedIn profile and have your resume ready to go. I would advise as well to have a social media strategy in place. But one of the things that I think is so important that I've learned from that whole process, right, is how important it is to find out where your people are online and stay active. So what is your industry? Where do those industry people hang out online? For a lot of us, it's going to be LinkedIn right now, especially if we're job searching and we're trying to get the attention of recruiters. So how are we then, it's good to have a LinkedIn profile. You should have an all-star profile, but you should also have a strategy in place where you're sharing, where you're interacting with people. So what is your strategy for engaging with people? What kind of things are you sharing? And is it setting you up as someone who is knowledgeable about your industry and as someone who can lead in your industry? So I would say, thinking about, right now, where is it that you want to go? Write those goals out, get that strategy in place. And sometimes the strategy may include steps, right? It may not be that you have to get more education or more training or more something before you can take that next step. But just the process of being on the road too can do a lot to improve your satisfaction, right? I've had jobs that I didn't like, but I knew they were giving me experience, right, in this industry or something to that effect. I had to do volunteer work. So I think knowing kind of what the end result is and what you're working towards can help with the steps that feel more grueling.
I just appreciate that you mentioned LinkedIn because I'm like thinking as myself, like as an entrepreneur, like I don't really utilize LinkedIn as much as I probably, should or could or what have you. Cause I've always struggled a bit with like, how do you post on LinkedIn and feel authentic? Like, how do you? I feel like I had like LinkedIn feels like one of the trickier ones for me.
I think especially for you, right? You have so much to share, right? And so much knowledge. And when you're looking at it from the point of view of how can this knowledge help others? So I share a lot of job search tips. And I believe that what I'm sharing is helpful to them. Even if I'm sharing about like my own events or even my own services, I believe that these events and services can be helpful to them. So I think it comes from that place of even if it's like, hey, I just did this awesome workshop. Maybe it feels a little bit like bragging, right? Yeah, you are. But it could also be, and you could have a workshop like this at your place, right? So for business owners, I definitely say you need a personal profile and you should have a company page as well.
And then like what if, you do something like a little bit more like traditional, like say you're like a nurse or a teacher. Would a teacher like, share about like how they build lesson plans or like, a nurse could share about, like their thoughts on the vaccine or I'm just throwing stuff out there.
No, and that's perfect. Yeah, as a teacher, how do you build lesson plans, curriculum, different behavioral methods that people are trying, and you can drum up conversations. You may too want to network in, they have groups that are all for teachers, and you don't know, like, is your goal to stay in that one school system? Maybe, maybe not. Maybe there's some charter school out there that's really interesting to you, and now you've attracted this person's attention. Or you're so good at networking nationally that if you have to move to another state, hey, 3 other teachers and principals in this other state because you've built this brand. I got a few in 2020, but back in 2019, recruiters were reaching out to me a lot for employment, and these were not positions that I applied to. This was just recruiters finding me on LinkedIn. Yeah, so I just say that be prepared and have a strategy out there to just be on social media, even if you're not looking, because you never know when like the next great opportunity is going to find you based on how you're being online.
Yeah, I think that I feel like I keep saying that. I love that, but I love that. I feel like thoroughly enjoying this conversation because it's like reminding me of lots of things that I've been working on doing. And even like one of them is like get like taking advantage of like free coaching. So like my school, I've been out of school for a whole long time, but like they have a strong alumni situation that happens. And like one of the things that they do is like coaching for entrepreneurs, and like they have all of these like free programs where like you can go and get one-on-one time with experts, and and like that has been a fantastic way for me to network that I would have like through Zoom. So I'm like making all these new friends like on the Zoom, which I think it definitely wouldn't have imagined that. Wouldn't have imagined that. But I mean, I think that there are definitely opportunities out there to meet new people, which I think expanding your network will only really expand your professional abilities. So, here at the Magic Hour, we always end an episode with 3 feed your soul questions. So, I just love to hear more about how others care for themselves spiritually and emotionally. Are there any consistent activities or rituals you do to maintain a sense of inner peace?
I do yoga and I try to end my yoga with meditation. I also listen to a lot of Abraham Hicks videos on YouTube. And then a lot too, sometimes I'll read books that are like spiritual by like Emmett Fox or different people. I mean, that helps a lot, especially back when I was commuting on the train.
Man, train time used to be my optimum reading time. I
Yeah.
used to knock books out. Now I have to listen to them because I can't. Okay, so the second question is when it comes to self development, what are the books or tools that really offered life changing discoveries for you?
So I think one of the books for me is Spiritual Liberation by Michael Bernard Beckwith. There's like something in there called intention and attention. And I always say that that was like the meditation for me that really brought me over to workforce development. After I set my intention and did that, I got a call. If not for the job that brought me into the field and for the job that introduced me to the field. I can't remember. Another book for me that I read, like I think right around college, was Write It Down, Make It Happen. Those are the two that are coming to mind for me right now.
The third and final question is, before beginning a creative process, what type of preparation do you normally undertake?
I think it's great to do a meditation beforehand, right? I like to write, so ideas happen for me all the time. So it's just about like writing it down, and I love to talk to someone about it. So talking it out, and then mapping. Okay, if this is the idea, what is it going to take, and put little dates by that, and kind of making my own little project plan or chart. And I always find that fun. Especially sometimes when you get pen to paper, it can be really fun.
I'm the same way. So, yeah, I totally agree with that. Thank you so much, Jasmine. This is a really wonderful chat. I really thoroughly enjoyed it. So, can you tell our listeners and viewers how they can follow you on your adventures?
Sure. So you can always go to my website, www.jasminebriggs.com. And if you go there, you can sign up for my free 2-minute job search meditation, and we can stay in contact that way. I am on Instagram as CI Coaching, on Twitter as Jasmine Briggs 1. I also have a Facebook page. And then you can also find me on LinkedIn. My LinkedIn URL is Jasmine Briggs, but I am under my new married name, Jasmine Briggs Rogers.
Yeah, and it'll also be right down in the show notes. Thank you, everyone, so much for tuning in to another episode of The Magic Hour. We really hope you enjoyed listening. Be sure to check out the show notes at mylittlemagicshop.com for more information on today's guest, Jasmine Briggs. We hope to see you again next Sunday. And as always, sending you so much love, light, and magic. And remember, without a dream, you can't have a dream come true. So make sure you're out there making your own damn magic.